And again, I think it's a really, really good framework. I often tell everyone on our team, like, we're going to be really successful startup founders. Like, we're all going to go and start our own new thing because that's the way we operate right now.
Today we're going to talk about the skills that a senior PM needs. We're going to share a bit from our own experience here at Miro, and we're going to dive into some actual examples of that on how we develop our own craft to build product at Miro. Welcome to the Live at Miro channel, and let's get started.
Hi, I'm VR. I'm Senior Product Manager at Miro, and I work on async collaboration.
Hey, I'm Fabian, Lead PM for the Miro AI strategy. I focus on accelerating innovation workflows with the help of AI. Today, we were going to talk about skills for senior product managers. I think we want to root it really in the way we do things instead of just listing down a couple of skills, but very much put it in the context of our day-to-day work and also here at Miro.
Great, yeah. And so like you and I were chatting about this earlier, and like the way we were thinking about it is like maybe two categories, like sort of senior PM craft skills, like the craft of product management that we think are important, and then more sort of general skills too, that are both needed to be successful as a senior PM. I think the great thing about Miro is you have a lot of accountability and ownership of your problem space. So our team owns the async collaboration problem space. And myself as a PM, kind of is one of the drivers of that. So there's a lot of accountability, and I like to think of myself almost as like a mini CEO and the rest of my team as co-founders. And we're working on trying to solve problems in this space. We have objectives that we set to, we have targets that we want to hit, and ultimately we're working with our senior leadership, our board exec, who are investors. And again, I think it's a really, really good framework. I often tell everyone on our team, like, we're going to be really successful startup founders. Like, we're all going to go and start our own new thing because that's the way we operate right now. We have specific goals. We sync, with our leadership, with other stakeholders very often, and we're just measured on success, on how we're getting there or not. Just the ability to kind of think of yourself more as a CEO, more of a director, running, thinking about your own problem space and having the desire and the accountability to own that. I think that's a skill set that is, I think, very fundamental too.
But I really like what you said, and there's like kind of these different stages along that journey, right? Starting off, really understanding the problem space. I think like as a PM, it's obviously critical that we're comfortable talking to our customers, and we seek that dialogue, that conversation to understand what are really the opportunities there, what are their pain points, but also not only for the end user who uses Miro every day, but also from a buyer perspective, right? Like, what is it that they want to achieve, and why would they hire Miro as the tool to get that done?
One of the other skills that I believe is really important for being a successful senior product manager at Miro is strong understanding of working cross-functionally. And I think all PMs do work cross-functionally with engineering, design, et cetera, but truly understanding the day-to-day of your cross-functional peers can separate, I think, more of a senior role versus not. Because for like a really specific example, like at Miro, we have a very specific way of shipping code, and engineers have to, work on tickets and, the commit pull requests, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there are some things that work well with that. There's pains with that too. And the fact that, we as senior PMs, we understand that a little bit more, we can empathize with it more. We also have a little bit understanding of what it takes to maybe ship a small, medium, large feature, or maybe if the feature interacts with certain parts of the code base or not. Those are kind of like maybe more technical things, right? And maybe not all PMs need to know that, but as more of a senior, you can kind of understand back of the napkin estimates. You can communicate with your engineers more efficiently. I think we have to understand how they work, how do they do their jobs, what their goals are, and kind of use that to better calibrate. And that to me at least leads to more efficiencies.
Absolutely, and you've just talked about like shipping there, and I think this is something that I know both of us really believe in. Like, what is the, like, always focusing on what is the smallest amount of investment that we can do to actually learn from what we're putting out there as well, right? Because shipping isn't, you put something out there and then everyone has access to it. It's very much like, what is that first iteration which we can learn from, which we can kind of understand the risks, etc., and the impact it has on our users, potentially even to a very small cohort at first, to then learn, iterate, and then release to a larger audience as well.
Or cut it.
Or never
release it. Yeah, we do that a lot in Miro, where we have experiments or internal releases that never make it to our users.
And I think there again, like prioritization, right, is like one of the key things that we probably spend a lot of our time on, is like, how do we get everything onto a board the opportunity space, really map that out. But by what criteria do we then understand which we should experiment with first, right? Like what should we put out there to really learn from? And I think I always think about it like, yes, there might be some opportunities that may be interesting to our users, but any minute we spend on that prohibits us from investing into that true differentiating value that we could be building instead. Because
it is true, like it's about focus and where you focus your energy on and in your time. That's, I think, another one that's really interesting as a product manager. I think I love how we're going from one to the next, but like focus.
Bringing focus to the team.
Focus to the team, focus to yourself, focus in communicating that focus to everyone. Like, hey, our team is focused on this right now, and we're focused on this specific initiative or this metric or this project for this reason. What we're singularly focused on right now is getting our target audience a set of users to make their first recording, and that's it. And so that's really, again, powerful. That I think, again, really important skill as a product manager, a senior product manager, to provide focus, provide justification why. It gives a lot of power to our engineers and our designers, and because they are all on board too.
Because the goal is clear, right? It gives them, again, autonomy to think within what is the most impactful initiative they could work on to achieve that goal.
Yeah, and then one of the things that Miro, again, I think is perhaps a bit different than maybe some other companies is engineers really drive a lot. They can own projects, again, depending on the team, and product managers can be very hands-on, down to writing user stories, et cetera, but find it more powerful if, I'm helping set the strategy, the vision, the justification why we're going in a different direction, and then allowing those who are the best at their craft, engineers, who are going to be building to like figure out the best way to solve that problem. And until you like have that focus or you don't have it, then it's hard to like reach the best outcome,
Miro has this incredible community that's very engaged, providing feedback to us directly in our public forums. And I think it's exciting to have such a vocal community or user base.
Right.
At the same time, that brings along the challenges like, who do you listen to, right? There's a very loud voice from our users, and we of course prioritize their needs, but in addition to that, we also need to ensure that the product kind of evolves strategically. And I think that's also something in Miro, I think, that we need to understand is like, what is their true goal they want to achieve, and how can we evolve the product to get them there, instead of building all the endless features that they're requesting. And I think from a senior PM perspective, it's really important to understand the problem and the desires and the needs separate that from the solution you eventually then build to really go way beyond of what's actually being requested, and keep that competitive edge to other companies who may be just listening to the feedback and implementing that word for word. And you learn, right? I mean, this is the aspect where, again, retrospectives, where I think something that's so important is like the bias towards action. It isn't a science, so therefore you can never be 100% sure on what the right next step is. Sometimes you really just have to take that leap of faith. You do as much as you can, and then you take that, you learn from that, and through that the process, the machine itself gets better. And I think that's something that you mentioned early on as well, is like as PMs, as senior PMs, we come with a toolkit that we know we can rely on to help us move this process along. We know essentially which tool to use at the right time to facilitate the right conversation, achieve the right decision, and align stakeholders around that as well.
Yeah, another sort of related thing I think is important as a senior PM, and again, maybe also more generalist skill, is like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, it's a bit of that tingling spider sense you get like when something's going wrong, or maybe course correcting, like what I'm doing is not working. So maybe you have data that's showing it. Maybe you're using your emotional intelligence and reading the room, getting feedback you're getting from users or from other leaders in the company, and just taking a step back and reevaluating and like pivoting and changing.
Yeah.
That's something that I've done a few times, many times actually at Miro. It's like, wait, like what I've been doing the last few weeks is just not working. Like, very specific example is when we were building our recording solution I mentioned earlier, and I think we're deep in research. We're doing like over a month or so plus research of really trying to identify the problem space, really understand our users, and frankly, we're just kind of spinning our wheels. I think after a while, now I'm looking back at it, I think I remember that moment where I just like took a step back and like just got some inputs from others, like, hey, like, what do I do here? Like, where do you think I should go? And someone came up with the idea, like, hey, like, let's just do a design sprint. Like, you have a lot of unknowns. A design sprint is like a 5-day cycle of testing, prototyping an idea, getting it in front of users, and seeing if there's any validation. And that was like a big pivotal moment in our project where, you know, we could pivot, we could try something out, and then from that point we sort of like hit like an exponential like curve of productivity. But before that, we were slugging along, and I think it just took me and a few others to take a step back and just realize, wait, something's not working here. Why is it not working, and reevaluate.
Yeah.
You know, I guess maybe it's like a courage of like admitting that maybe you're wrong, or like not being shy to just change. You know, because like sometimes people can get very you've been doing something a certain way for a long time.
Yeah.
You have a lot of pride, you're invested in it, but you have to kind of just like let it go.
You know, we can be very open, and I think this is an important thing in an organization like Miro. People need to know what you're doing and where you're trying to go so that they can actually proactively help you as well.
Right.
And I think as a senior PM, creating that brand around your team and helping everyone understand what you're doing with your team and what you're responsible for is critical for people to come to you, understand when there's overlap potentially, alignment between the initiatives that are needed, when they essentially need you to improve something instead of doing it and doubling up themselves. But it's like breaking down of silos and being a very visible person in the organization that people know to go to is, I think, a critical aspect of a senior PM in an organization like Miro as well. I think there was one other aspect as well, which is like wearing many hats, right? In actually the design exercise that we discussed in a different video, you already talked, or both of our exercises actually went through the whole journey where we tried to make sense of a problem. I did some user interviews. You actually did some research based on information that was available via our community forums. And then bringing it all the way up to actually making some basic wireframes as well. And I think this is also a senior PM trait, is we don't have everything at hand to do the perfect job. There is the moments when we need to put on a different hat. We end up doing some SQL queries to get to the right data. We end up doing some wireframes to unblock the team. We may even dive deep into some engineering discussions on how to kind of create the right platform, also to be able to then again represent the team externally. And I think it's important that I think as a senior PM that we are comfortable doing that. That we have done this in our previous roles with other teams, that we learned from the designers how to do this. And then, of course, this is often more so a temporary need. Once your team has traction, once you receive the investment, of course, the team gets built out. But sometimes to get it to that point, I think we have to wear many hats.
One of the other skills that I think is pretty important as a senior PM is being able to identify which frameworks or ways of thinking and solving complex problems and breaking them into smaller pieces at any given time. And I think we talked about in the previous video where we went over our business cases that we did for our interviews, and those were basically the biggest problem, right? And we're breaking it down from strategy, research, design, implementation, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's very important to have the ability to know which framework to apply at what time you are in the stage, right? Like if you're in a strategy stage, like maybe you need to focus on setting your vision and what's your team mission and maybe some objectives you want to focus on. Maybe if you're on more of a research phase, you need to ideate. And then if sometimes you hop back and forth, like it's not just a linear like A, B, C, D, E flow. You don't just go from strategy to ideation to design, deliver. It's not as beautiful as that. It's a mess,
and
right?
It shouldn't be, because you should learn along the way, right?
Absolutely. You're right. And so when you like hop back and forth, I think it's important, like, well, maybe you're building and then all of a sudden you research or you learn something new. So like, then what framework do you use? Are you going to use a how might we framework? Are you going to use an opportunity solution mapping tree? Are you going to be using some other exercise or some other way for you to make sense of that mess? Or is there something new that you're bringing, like your own framework, maybe, which is often like, I know you and we have our own ways of thinking of things, and it's like kind of a hodgepodge, a mix of everything. So now that we've talked about some of the skills that we think are important to be senior PM at Miro's, next question is like, how do you highlight them for a CV or your LinkedIn, and how can you do it so you can better land a job at Miro or anywhere else that you're looking in. One of the things that at least I find very important, and this might sound a bit simple, but it's just be very, very specific on the job that you're applying for at Miro. So usually all the jobs talk about the responsibilities, the requirements, the responsibilities, and a bit about what the day-to-day is. So one, like make sure you're applying to a position that you want, that matches that, because that's probably what it's going to be like. And if you don't like it, you're not going to like your job. And two, like also like at Miro, you know, especially senior PMs, we're kind of like expecting you to hit the ground running. And you have, and to me, it's like, it's more of an excitement thing rather than a stress thing. It's like, it's great. It's like really from early on, you're going to be doing your monthly updates to the entire company, to senior leadership, et cetera. You have that visibility from day one. So the expectation is you can drive and deliver day one. So focus on the skills that are noted in the JD. Make sure you highlight those in your CV or your LinkedIn. And I would say come very prepared to the interview to discuss those. Whether it's, you know, working collaboratively across functions, whether it's influencing senior leaders, maybe it's something more technical, maybe it's like you're working on a API-based team or a back-end team, maybe you should highlight those examples. If you've worked more design-based, I think it's just really important to have examples prepared that are not only on your resume that match the job description, but also like for the interview itself.
I think that sets a great foundation for the subsequent conversations to be based around that, to be able to bring them back up again, reference those data points as conversation starters as well.
I think it's really important to kind of nail who you are as well, because there's a human aspect of interviewing that comes into this too, and we want to check. We have a very strict criteria. We look to see if you're, you know, hitting the values that we have that you can find on our website. We also look for, you know, technical and craft acumen that's listed on the job description. But then also there's this other aspect too, right? Like of understanding kind of like who you are and what value you bring to the company. You know, are you going to be able to raise the bar at Miro as well? Because that's something that we like to have as well from senior PMs. Can they raise the bar and make everyone else better?
And that brings us to the end of today's video. We hope you liked what we have shared, and please subscribe to our channel. We'll be sharing more about what it's like inside Miro and how you can grow your career in tech. Hope to catch you in the next video.